Hey, welcome to Loot Shooter Weekly, Season 3, Episode 11. Tonight I am your lovely co-host, Burt Reynolds, gamertag Burt Reynolds, and the host tonight, because we're back in the division, is the one and only Golden Voice Gaming Negan Killjoy. So I'm going to hand off hosting duties to him, and
Awesome.
yeah, there you go.
Well, thank you. And yes, this is the Golden Voice of Gaming. This is Negan. I am going to be hosting tonight. But the camera angles. So the cameraman tonight is actually going to be Burt Reynolds. So he'll be doing all the camera angles for us as we're going through this Loot Shooter Weekly, like you said, episode 11, season 3, episode 11. It's been a while. And even longer than that, it's been a while since we've been in the division. Last, 3 weeks or so? We've been kicking it in Borderlands, running around
Yeah, I
Borderlands,
think
doing
it's
some
about
farming
3
and stuff
weeks.
like that.
Yep.
Doing that stuff.
And I would totally emote for you, but they broke the emote, so you cannot emote.
See, I thought it was just me. I was sitting here trying to emote. I'm like, has it been so long I forgot how to emote inside of Division?
No.
But they broke it. Okay. I feel well, I don't feel better now because the reason we were out of it for a couple weeks is because they were going to drop a patch a couple weeks ago. They put that off a little bit. Then they were going to drop it last week, put it off again. And the reason we're back in is they did finally drop it. So we're back into the division, and we're looking at the new stuff that they nerfed or they buffed or what they changed. And I was able to play a little bit today. I got into it a little bit, ran around, and I don't know. Did you get to play at all today, or did you were you a working man today?
I played a little bit today. After
Nice.
work, actually, and this evening, played some. I think I probably put in about 2 hours total into it.
So you and I put about the same amount of time into it today after the patch dropped. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And my first impressions are I tried to run specifically into areas where they said they made the changes. The big ones were they changed the burn effect, they changed the bleed effect on the players, both PvE and PvP. So that effect plays both sides of the equation as far as that goes. They did those, which also plays into the Mazel Tov grenades from the Outcasts. They made those a little less accurate, and they made some of the other grenades less accurate as well, based on the distance you are from the person shooting the grenades. So that was my goal. So I spent about an hour running around checkpoints today and getting checkpoints up to 3 and 4 and running it not on challenge. I ran them on hard. I kind of cheated the system a little bit today. But before we talk about all the stuff we did and all the 2 hours of play and actually show off what we're going to be doing today, the big question tonight, Burt, what are you drinking tonight?
That is a good question. I am drinking a beer from Crystal Lake Brewery, which is our local brewery. It's their Real Hazy. It's got a fish on it, like a fishing lure.
Okay.
It is not a hazy IPA though. It is a hazy pale ale, and I've never had it before. It's new. I'm gonna try it.
So help me understand, and I think I know the difference between pale ales and India pale ales. It's kind of the hop content and stuff like that. What's the difference? Is that accurate as far as the difference goes, or?
Yes, that would be the difference. So an IPA is going to be, well, if you want to get into brewing specifics, IPAs are dry hopped, meaning
That's right.
instead of you boil the hops too. I mean, in the brew you brew using hops, but then partway through the fermentation period, it would add hops because hops keep the beer from spoiling. That's where the name India Pale Ale comes from. So when India was still a province or whatever you want to call it of England, and they would ship beer there, they would dry hop it in the cargo hold of the ship to keep the beer from spoiling on the way to India. And the intent was they would add additional water when it got there. But the people, they would start unloading the beer from the boat, and nobody wanted to bother with adding additional water, so they just drank
gets in
it
the way,
that way.
man. It just gets in the way at that point.
So that's where the name India Pale Ale comes from, IPA, and it would be dry hopped. I believe this one is specifically not dry hopped, meaning
Okay.
they did not. And that's the same with one of my other favorite beers actually is this Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. I've never featured on the show. It is one I because it's not new to me. I love it though. and that's the same. They don't dry hop that.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I knew that was the big difference, and I knew India Pale Ale they did that because of the India and the colonies and stuff like that. So it's kind of cool.
Yep.
So, which is ironic, is that apparently we had a unplanned theme this evening for our beers, is because I'm going with a hazy IPA
Okay.
called Brother Stardust. Good lord, called from Laughing Monk Brewery. It's a brewery out here outside in San Francisco. And I tried to find a description online because there's nothing on the beer, and it's one of the what you call the solo beers, a canny or something like that. You just call it
Yeah, like a
solo.
Lucy.
And
Yeah.
so it's just a solo beer. It's not a description on the beer, and some people describe it as a New England IPA.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see how it really tastes because I know what IPAs that I'm usually associated with are West Coast kind of IPAs. So I'm kind of interested to see how this one, since people describe it as New England, how it tastes as a New England hazy IPA, which I didn't
I
think
got a
was possible.
secret for you.
What?
Hazy IPAs are New England IPAs. That's the difference. West Coast
Is that
ones.
the difference?
It is. That just because in New England they started not filtering them, and so that's where the term New England IPA comes from.
Well, then why
Means
did
it's
so
not.
why do we? So we're
Well,
we're
because
geeking out on beer now.
when West Coast guys started brewing New England style IPAs, they didn't want to call them that. They just called them hazy IPAs. So if it depending on where in the country it's from, typically it would be a hazy IPA. But if you're east of where I live, they don't call it a hazy IPA. They call it a New England style IPA. So when I go out east all the time, no menu will ever say hazy IPA on it. It'll just say New England style IPA on it.
Well, that might
Same
explain why
thing.
the few IPAs that I've had that have been described as New England I've actually enjoyed. So would understand why I enjoy hazy IPAs as well over regular IPAs. Well, there we
Yeah.
go. Learning all sorts of
There
new
we
stuff.
go.
Dry hopping, India Pale Ales, why they became India Pale Ales, all the good stuff. Geeking out on the beers tonight more than anything else, which is nice. So, on that note, cheers to you, my friend.
Cheers. Cheers,
That's
Negan.
just right off the bat.
Mine's good.
Oh, definitely citrus. I like that. Definitely got the citrus going in it.
Yeah.
All right.
Same here.
So that we know what we're drinking. We're doing the hazies all day, every day. Let's get back to the game. So, like I said, I ran a little bit today, focusing on trying to get the grenades and trying to figure out the fire and stuff. And in my limited playtime and the limited exposure I got to that on the level, like I said, I'm running it on hard. You have your world set to heroic, so we'll probably find out exactly how much damage it does. It does seem they did tune him down a little bit. It does seem as a player you can survive at least one or two fire bursts now.
Mhm.
I don't know. Did you notice the same thing?
Yeah. Yes, I did. The fire and the poison are definitely turned down.
That's a good thing. That's definitely a good thing because it used to insta-kill people really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
So
Yeah, I found that to definitely be the case with it. So I think the kind of the list of tone downs were something to the effect of, they lowered fire damage. So check on that one. They lowered poison damage. Check. I think they buffed up the effectiveness of player armor.
Yeah, I've heard a couple different thoughts on that people were talking about that. It's not in the official notes that I could find when I was looking at them, but it does feel like they did something to the players to make the players a little more survivability, improve their survivability a little bit.
I saw something in the notes that said something to the effect of, made corrections to player health or player. I forget what it exactly said. Something that was very vague. Or tuned player, maybe it said tuned player survivability, something along those lines. And I'm running a meta glass cannon build, red, all red across the board, 3 pieces of Providence.
Mm-hmm.
I'm running a perfect unbreakable chest and a perfect vigilance backpack. Whatever the build was I had before I left, so, and it's like max rolls on everything. I'm like, 60% crit chance and I don't remember. A lot of crit damage.
Right.
15% on every piece. Yeah. I mean, it's a all red build. I am not any more survivable than I was before at least on heroic. I can be insta-downed multiple
Right.
times in an engagement.
But it seems like you're not as some of the stuff that was actually hard to avoid because of the fact the grenades were, as they say, hella accurate. I mean, these guys could throw the grenades from across the map and pinpoint where you were going, not necessarily where you're at, but if you try to move out of the way, they'd hit you where you were going. So they adjusted those two factors as well. So now the grenades are way less accurate. I noticed that almost immediately running the
So
checkpoints that I was running.
not on heroic, right?
Heroic, there's still a little pretty good
They
accuracy.
well, I mean, even in the patch notes, if you read it, right, like the adjustments were made to all the levels other than heroic and legendary. So heroic and legendary grenades, there's less of them.
Right, they turned down the spam a little bit.
They turn on the spam, but they did not tune the accuracy on heroic or legendary. And so
Yeah, it said it has less of an effect or something like that. They tuned it a little bit, but not as much as you did on the other levels.
I was doing a cover to cover move, like a double cover to cover move earlier, and a grenade launcher guy fired a grenade from a quarter of a block down that hit me at the point where I ended my double move. And it hit me square in the face and insta-downed me. Now, that said, he didn't, usually I was, I had a revive hive and I got back up. Usually what would immediately follow that would be a second grenade and then a third and then a fourth. You know what I mean? That would never let me basically get back up. And that didn't happen. I was able to get back up, get back into cover, use a med kit, fight back. So, they definitely made some tuning to how much grenade spam. They did break, because one of the other things they had said they were going to do, they reduced the player or the enemy aggressiveness, right? Like rushing.
Yes.
Certain archetypes aren't supposed to rush, right? So they tuned down some of the rushing. I did not find that to be the case. And the only place I found to be the case is with the RC cars, which they said they tuned down the RC car spam.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they didn't test it real well because I think they tuned down the RC cars rushing you, or the people who send out drones or RC cars rushing you. But now because they just sit in cover and they don't rush, they send out actually more RC cars and more drones. I saw a screenshot today earlier of a drone pilot guy who had set out 15 or 16 drones.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And that was my experience with I got into a fight trying to do a little broadcast events, where you have to take back the broadcast tower.
The propaganda.
And propaganda broadcast. And there's an RC car chick, and before I killed her, she sent out 12 RC cars.
Dang. All right.
So, I mean, that's some serious RC. I was able to kill all of them because I've stayed in cover most of the time.
Right.
Because if I pop out of cover, I'm dead instantly. And they did tune up the blind fire, so I have found that the way to run the game at this point is to just run from cover to cover and just blind fire the whole time on heroic.
Right, which to their credit, they've always said it's a cover-based shooter. So, they're kind of pushing it. The blind fire takes it to a whole different extreme, but they are pushing to that extent. And they did turn, like you said, they tuned down the fire and all that stuff because that in the RC cars, again, I was able to tank a couple different hits with RC cars directly that used to put me down pretty quickly.
Yeah, and
So
I tanked some drones today, and they knocked me out of cover for a second, but they weren't unbelievable.
Right.
That's so good. I mean, they tuned some of that stuff down, and I feel like it's a step in the right direction.
Which they talked about. That was this was the first balancing patch or pass that they were really going to do because of the aggressiveness that they had mentioned, that it's a global setting, and some of the patches and that they've done recently has exposed, I'm going to call them flaws with the aggressiveness of the NPCs, and they can't just tune one NPC or two NPCs here or there. They have to kind of do a global pass. So that's what they're doing now. This pass again, they address the tanks going after the hives and turrets. That they turned that down once before, and they did another pass this time. So there is some stuff they can do individually because they've done it now twice to the tanks of turning it down, not going after your hive.
It definitely did not work. The tanks went after my hive every single time it fell down. If there was a
Because
tank on the map, but I'm running on heroic.
right.
If
So
there
it's
was a
minor.
tank out there and they were anywhere on the map, the second my guy went down and his hive dropped, the tank made a beeline towards me for my hive. Now, usually I was up before they could get there, but I did not experience that. And the other one I experienced today that is infuriating is spam of rushers in certain waves on, I guess the outcasts. The shield guys with the axes immediately go for your hive. It's the first thing they go for. They
Oh,
don't
okay.
even go for you. If you've got a hive down, they go for the hive. Yeah, I mean, there's still, and this is going to sound like really salty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go for it.
I rage quit. I did rage quit, and went back to playing something else. Um, I feel like it's a step in the right direction, but
Okay.
I feel like the game was a steaming puddle of hot diarrhea, and now it's a steaming solid turd. So less messy, it still stinks. Like there's still a major problem with it on heroic. Now, I did play a little tiny bit today on hard, and hard was fun.
Mm-hmm.
But the
Mm-hmm.
problem is, I literally don't get any like even on heroic, I'm not really getting improvements to my build anymore. Like 1 in 30 pieces has a minor improvement to my build.
And I think that's been the consensus amongst the players that we run with that talk about the builds and stuff like that and the drops, that it's very specific where the good drops are coming. They're coming from like named enemies and like the faction boxes and stuff. But yeah, you're right. The drops aren't really good. Which is why I was hanging out at the hard, because my build right now is just slaughtered. I don't know what happened to it. It's just a hodgepodge of pieces and stuff like that. So, but so I had to go on hard just so it would be fun for me.
Well,
So,
and to that end, I mean it is. But if you have any hope, like you're going to hit a certain point, and to be fair, I have not played any solo or any heroic with a group, and
mhm.
I think it's just definitely tuned for a group, right? Because I can't both be doing enough DPS, and here again, and this is what I was realizing tonight. Like maybe this game in the state, like a couple things are true, or they're not true, but I'm hoping they're true.
Mhm.
I'm hoping this isn't the vision they have for the game, that it's like this. But I've
Like what?
kind of come to the like where it's not fun to play on heroic by yourself.
Oh,
I
okay.
hope that's not their vision for the game. I would hope that they would have a game that could be tuned to be fun on heroic by yourself. Because quite honestly, if the only way you can farm is when you're in a group, that's going to be a very limiting thing, right? Just is.
Agreed.
So I'm hoping that's not their vision for the game. But one answer is it is. And if it is, that sucks. The other answer would be they just can't fix it. They can't fix
Right.
it. There's global things about this game and its engine and how it was originally, built that they just can't quite fix. Or the third option is they can't fix it during the time of COVID, or can't get it right. And I'm choosing to believe that the third is true. I guess time will tell.
Mhm. And you think
But
because
for
QA and QC teams work better when this is situated in the same room or the same office type spaces, which you've said before to me about QC stuff.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, the thing is, like, I want a game where I can farm for gear solo on heroic, and I mean, maybe I'm not good, and that's totally possible. Maybe I suck at this game. It's totally
Right.
possible. But I've got the build. You know what I mean? So it's not like if I look at what's the meta build for this game, and our friend Horchata is a huge Division fanboy, and he's like, no, the thing you're doing wrong is you're running one piece of blue. You got to run all red with Providence. And I looked it up, man. I looked up the meta build. I already have it on. I'm running a Baker's Dozen. I'm running good assault rifle with the right talents, tons of crit chance and crit damage. I got max mods. It took me 2 magazines to drop a rusher with a shield shooting at him, and he one hit me. Now I believe he should one hit me, That feels real.
Mm-hmm.
Guy hits you with an axe, you should die.
Right.
But the fact I
Right.
can't take him down is a problem.
Before he gets to you. Yeah. That's definitely a problem.
So that's not okay. Because if this game didn't take place in reality, like in a realistic place with realistic guns and realistic people, it probably wouldn't bother me as much. But that's not the case. So it seems realistic that being hit with an axe in the head would kill me, and I'm okay with that. Does not seem realistic that 35.56 assault rifle rounds does not even slow a person down.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
that's not
Reality
realistic.
on one side, yeah. Reality on one side, not reality on the other side. No, that totally makes sense. And that's true. I think the game does have to find a place for the solo player. If it is their vision that it's a group thing at Heroic, that's a decision they can make, and they need to make it clear. But because there are times when you just want to run around, you want to improve your build and pick up your gear, and do your thing like that, and that's just not happening. Which is where some of the fun in the other game we've been running, the Borderlands 3, that's where some of that comes from, is as a solo kind of a mindless activity, which I'm not a huge fan of farming, as we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
You
I
don't
can't
like
sit
it
there.
in any game. You don't like.
Yeah,
You're not a
I can't sit
farmer
there
in
and
any
farm
game.
for hours. Exactly, which is why my builds usually lag behind everybody else's. But of the two games, the farming aspect in Borderlands 3, they do a good job of that. They do go in there. You do have very specific, targeted. Here's what boss you can run. It may take you 60 times. It may take you 70 times to get the piece to drop that you're looking for, but at least every time you go in there, there's a X% chance that piece will drop, guaranteed. That percentage is always going to be there, whether it's 2% or 5%. So they do a good job of that. So you're going in there with purpose, and it is soloable. You can do it by yourself. So it is with purpose that you can do some of that stuff. In Borderlands 3, it doesn't feel like there's the same locations in Div 2 that allows the same stuff.
No, and I was running in the Providence zone, and I cleared multiple CPs, multiple times actually, on Heroic. So it's not like it can't be done, but it takes 15 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's 15 minutes, and it's rage-inducing at times. Like, rage-inducing when you're just rattling off rounds into guys, and they're not, they're losing armor, but they're purple bar enemies, you know what I mean? And they're running sprint routes and dodging bullets, and even when you hit them, and then for them to turn and kill you very easily is infuriating. I think I cleared 3 total, and I did not get anything that was an upgrade at all. Not a thing. That's a problem, right? If I'm going to invest that kind of time and frustration, there needs to be a mechanic in here to read what you've got in your inventory and say, I'm at least going to give you a little something for your trouble.
Right.
Little something.
Little something. So explain to me, and this is a question I've had over the last couple of days. Wait, like I just talked about with Borderlands 3, you've run, I think it was Trot, you had said you ran him like 40 times, and you didn't get what needed that you were looking for from him. But that doesn't induce rage. Whereas running 15, 30 minutes inside Div 2, why do you think one is more rage inducing than the other?
I think it's pretty simple, man. I think it's 2 reasons. One, I have no idea if I have a shot at anything here. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, yes, I know I'm in the Providence area, but I mean, in every one of those supply rooms, I got several purple items. Like, I didn't even get all gold. You know what I mean? Like, it's
you're in heroic settings is where you're at. So
right.
You shouldn't get purple. Okay.
On one of those, I only got 2 Providence pieces in the whole room. You know what I mean? I got like a trash pistol, good rolls on it, like good damage roll on it, but it had a terrible talent, terrible gun. There's so much of a chance of no upgrade that it feels like you're just going to get lucky, and I might get just as lucky killing a guy on the street. You know what I mean? I might, because there's about the same amount of chance. So that's, and then when you get to the next level up, you start to look at things like exotics. Well, they've already said there's no real targeted loot for the exotics other than, these like broad swaths, right? Like bosses or bounties have a higher chance of dropping this thing, but it could be any. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
so if I'm looking for the Bullet King,
There's no real
there's
one
not
location you
there's
can
not
go
like
to
a
for that.
mission that I can go to do that. There's not like, and they said the targeted loot doesn't impact it, just that there's a slightly higher chance from heroic bounty targets.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Could run 50 heroic bounties though because it's RNG and not get it. Then I can get it, and they'll have terrible rolls on it, and there's nothing I can do about it. You know what I mean? Like, at least with having one place where that, for example, the Chaosin's always going to drop, eventually I am going to get a good one. It just, statistically, it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
And that's always proven itself out. Eventually I'm going to get it with the anointment I want and a decent damage roll. So
That's true. That is true.
And then there's the other aspect of it, which is if I don't, I can always go trade with somebody. I can take some other good piece I've got and throw it up for trade on a trading thing because we can all share gear, even mail it to each other.
Yes.
Whereas here, I have no other options, right? Like there's no.
Yeah, you have a
I'm
1
going
in
to
a
bang
100
my head
chance
against the
running.
wall.
Yeah, running by yourself. 1 in 100 chance, and if a buddy of yours is just run at the same time, but you're in separate groups, and he gets what you're looking for, you're shit out of luck. You got it. You didn't. And we've commented, and I think that's a strength of Borderlands 3 with regards to their loot is because you can trade, you can wait, you can mail. That if you find something good, somebody else is looking for, here you go, have a nice time and run with it. So that's kind of a cool thing. So I can understand why one of them would be a little more from a farmer quote unquote perspective. One would be a little more rage inducing than the other. So
Yeah,
because with Borderlands, like you said, something usually drops. The targeted piece on some of the bosses always drops the targeted piece itself. It's just whether it's a good piece or not is what you're fighting for from that point forward with regards to RNG.
right. Well, and I think here's the other. I think there's two other aspects to it that I didn't cover. One of them we sort of already covered, which is there's a detachment from reality in a game like Destiny or Borderlands or even Diablo, in that those are fantasy games, right? I mean, they're fantasy games. They're not based in any kind of reality.
Right.
There's not, there's like Diablo, right? You got mages and wizards and goblins and ogres and that kind of stuff. And Destiny, it's space cowboys, and Borderlands is like space Mad Max or whatever.
Right.
It's not there's no reality. So the fact that I empty 15 mags into something doesn't feel weird. It's not a person. It's some weird
Right.
alien creature.
Yeah, the level of expectation is different.
Yeah, but here it's rage-inducing when, again, a guy with a shield and an axe wearing capris and a t-shirt can take 60 rounds of 5.56 to the legs. It doesn't even slow him down. And then he can take another 30 rounds to the head and it finally kills him, but only after he's already put me on the ground once with his axe. Like that's rage-inducing. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
If it was a dragon that did that to me, I'd feel different about it. I don't know why that is, but I'd feel different about it.
That's a fair call out. That's a fair call. And that's been my thing when we talk about Borderlands, we talk about Destiny. And Destiny 2 is just, speaking of pile of fucking rivers of diarrhea, apparently. It's
yeah,
bad place.
Bad spot.
So, and that's when we talk about the other games, and that's always been my thing, is the expectations are set differently because they are fantasy based. That you are
Correct.
looking at it completely different. So, yeah, and I guess that's why I kind of cut that. I guess, and most people do, will cut them a little more slack as far as that stuff goes. So, do we want to go demonstrate what they've changed and see how fast we get put down by something? Do you want to go to a checkpoint or?
Yeah, whatever you want to do, man. Whatever you want to do. I don't.
See who's out front.
Care.
See who's out front.
Let's go see who's out front. Yeah. But I think then the third part of it, that's rage-inducing to me about it is, again, there's just a lot of inconsistency. And I'm pigeonholed into, like, on heroic at least, sort of running either in a group or running the build I'm running.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
to
there's
be
not a lot of
effective.
diversity.
That's rage-inducing in and of itself, right? Because what if I don't want to run a baker's dozen? What if I don't want to run all reds? What if I want to be an actual like tank? Well, you won't kill anything on heroic unless you've got at least 4 reds. You won't even, I mean, you won't even be able to tickle them, right? So that's going to be super unfun. And then enemy behavior's enraging to me. This the fact again, these guys sprint around like I finally get a beat on somebody and they sprint around like zigzag patterns, like they're running routes, in football. That kind of stuff, it just feels cheesy. It doesn't feel like real difficulty. It feels like lazy programming difficulty.
Yeah, I can see where you feel that way.
Like that guy. Doesn't
The
he get
barrel roll.
tired? Doesn't he get tired? Like how? So I have headshotted this guy with an M1A like no less than 7 times, right? This again with an all red build. You're doing the same thing.
Yep.
There's just a
That,
disconnect from reality there. And,
yeah.
chances of getting an upgrade here are virtually none. I got a shotgun that has a good damage to armor roll, but it's a garbage shotgun with a garbage talent.
Well, bad guy shooting at us. We're in menus here, people.
So, I don't know, man. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe it's just that they need to wait till COVID's over, do a little overhaul to the engine of this
Gotcha.
game. I don't know. Maybe.
Which sounds like
It's
in the notes, that's kind of what they're saying is that with TU10 is where they think they're going to be able to make a much more aggressive pass through everything than what they just did.
And they probably will. They probably will. And here's the bad part about it though is like having some semblance of reality is actually important. I was thinking about that tonight because it's like I think I'm in the same spot you are with Borderlands, where it's like I'm not saying that game's the answer. It's got its own massive problems, massive problems.
Exactly. I
And
see what you did there. Dun.
we've we've played a lot of it, and like I could use something else in the mix for a change of pace, right? And I was really hoping this was going to be it. And I think it could be if I didn't care about actually, like if I just wanted to come back and play, I can turn it down. I can just turn it down to hard or whatever and probably have a blast. But I won't make any improvements. Like it's not like I'll have, nothing's going to drop that's going to be better than what I got.
Right. And you've said that a couple times now. You said that nothing's going to be better than what you have. Do you think, I mean, obviously you min-max your builds. We're not Twitch streamer or YouTuber time spent in the games, but we do have, well, you do anyway, much better than mine, min-max build. So are you still actually, do you think improved pieces actually exist out there? There's still things you can do or what? I mean, or is it just,
but it's
just
gonna
at
be,
that point?
It's going to be tiny. I mean, like, what am I going to pick up? Another 1% crit chance? I'm already at 60. What am I going to pick up? 2% more crit damage? How much is that going to matter? The problem with it is, right, like, and this is what's, again, like, as you think about it, rage-inducing, is because I'm being shoehorned into running a all-red build with the Baker's Dozen and a meta assault rifle and 3 pieces of Providence.
Right. So you can't improve the build because there's really only one quote meta build that really does the heroics. There's not a lot of diversity and stuff like that as far as it goes.
Well, at least if I want to run solo. Now,
right.
Could I put together a healer build? Yeah, every group's going to need a healer, and
And everybody's going to need CC. You can start doing it as far as looking at the groups, but from a solo,
I have a great CC build that really can't be improved much. I don't really have a healer build, but I'm not going to run it anywhere outside of group play, and we have friends that have great healer builds. I have good skill builds.
Yeah, you do.
like in really, really solid skill builds. So what am I farming for? Like honestly, what am I farming for? I'm farming for a couple exotics for which I don't exactly know where I can get them with a minimal chance. I don't want to get them on any other tier than heroic because I know they'll have trash rolls,
Right. Right.
but it's not fun to play heroic by yourself. We could all play this together every night, but even on, multiple players, it's not necessarily easy or fun, and here's the bigger problem. It's not any different. Like there's not a ton of new stuff that we've run pretty much everything other than the new hunters and some of the seasonal stuff, which
Right.
I've
Yes.
agreed to come back and run some of that, right? Like with horchata. And I live up to that.
It's like somebody handed you a contract. Okay, Bert, you need to sign the contract here. You need to agree to
I
these
signed
terms
up
and
for it.
conditions.
I signed up. I said I'd do it, and I'll do it.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
But I won't come back here to just play for enjoyment or by myself. Does that make sense? Like
Those are fair
I
points.
can't.
Those are fair
And
points. And
so Ghost Recon, that's where it's at for me. Because at least things die reasonably fast and you get killed reasonably fast. That feels more fair at this point.
yeah, that definitely needs to be put on the rotation for you and I at least to get back into
Yeah.
Breakpoint and do some of that immersive stuff again. And going to what you were talking about with regards to the builds, and we're about to wrap it up here in a couple minutes. Um, Going back to that aspect, and because we have been playing it so much, I'm going to run a parallel to Borderlands 3. It does seem, at least with Borderlands 3, one, you enjoy running that solo. That's clear. You've done a lot of farming by yourself and stuff like that. But also, there does seem to be different builds that you can run inside Borderlands 3. Like you main a Moze, but you've also started doing a Mara lately. But I think even with your Moze stuff, there's a couple different builds that you're running. You're running a one hit point again now, but you're
Mm-hmm.
running a different one for the longest time before that. You ran a one hit point, you
Yeah.
ran this other, I forget what the other build was called. And now you're running one hit
Minesweeper.
point again. Minesweeper,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So it does seem there at least there's a couple different, not a whole lot of diversity because we talked that to death last week. I'm not going to go into that again this week.
Right.
But there is a little more diversity here. It seems like you said, there's if you're going to run solo, if you have to run solo, there's only one thing you can run. That's the Providence. That's the Baker's Dozen. That's the All Reds or whatever like that, which takes a lot of the fun out of the game. And that's the same thing with me. Is I have my build that it does what it does, and I just don't, kind of the same thing. I don't want to sit there and have to get these minuscule updates and stuff like that. So, and like we talked about, the Hunters is a new content, new chasing the Hunters.
Mm-hmm.
It's still in the same, environment. You're still dealing with the same trash, but at least it's a new piece of content. Like, okay, I can now have a new goal. And that is where Borderlands 3 is still doing a good job of. They seem to introduce something new every couple weeks right now. They're in a pretty good cycle with these new things that they're introducing on their side and what they're doing on their side to keep it fresh, to keep it, at least for a couple days. There's only so many
Right.
build runs you can do before that becomes old.
Amen.
So,
And that's definitely where we're at with that one, right? Like we've run the Villa a lot, and
mm-hmm.
I, at the top level here, though, right, there are only a couple guns. Like my complaint with that I had last week is there's only a handful of guns that are viable in Mayhem 10 and Borderlands. But
Mm-hmm.
coming back here today, I realized there's really only a couple guns that are really viable here in Heroic, right? Like I'm not going to run around with a shotgun. Now, it's maybe archetypes. It's more archetypal than it is
Mm-hmm.
actual
Yes.
guns, right? But I'm also not going to run around with a sniper rifle in Mayhem 10. That'd get me killed quick. I'm not going to run with a shotgun. I am going to run with an assault rifle. I'm probably one that's got a fast rate of fire. All the better. And I'm going to run with the Baker's Dozen because ammo is a problem. It's still a huge problem. I ran out of ammo so many times today trying to kill groups of enemies because they're so spongy.
Right. Goes
And
to the whole shooting the rusher with 3 magazines, and
right,
before he even drops, and you only have 10 magazines on you.
right. So it's like, I mean, you almost have to solo run the baker's dozen, otherwise, you're not going to have enough ammo to kill everything. So then you end up kind of back where we were at with Borderlands, which is there's only, you got to have that gun. You almost have to have it. It's like you could run it with an LMG, you could run it with an SMG, you can run it with an assault rifle, but you almost have to have it for sustain. Now again, I'm going to call it out. I might just be bad at this game. My seasonal pass thing, that the watch, my Shade Tech watch is only level 85, so I don't have all the buffs from that or anywhere near it. I imagine if I had all those buffs active, my guy would be more strong.
But
so
that wraps up all of what we were talking about with some of the struggle that we go through with the game itself. And it's still, I still think it's one of my favorite games. I still enjoy it. It's not a game that I'm like, I haven't, like I said, Destiny 2, I haven't played that in months. I don't think I've even looked at that recently, except to go in there and look at the dots on the wall and to figure out, okay, now they're doing some sort of tower thing again. So, okay, we're done.
So I'm out. Yep.
So yeah,
I'm out.
That was not going to happen. At least here I can get in here and I can play a little bit and not, that the frustration isn't immediate. So it's kind of nice. But no, it all kind of wraps up into that. And that's why my watch level isn't where it's at, because the new content hasn't been there. There hasn't been a lot of, the Manhunt is an interesting twist, but it's still the same content. You still have to run the checkpoints.
Yeah.
You still have to do the bounties. It's still the same stuff. And we mentioned this a few times. Why the fuck did they introduce New York and then not make New York pivotal to all the new stuff that they were doing?
Right.
They take us back there. They show us New York. It's cool. New York has new things. And then we're like, okay, well, that was fun. Thanks, New York. Nice seeing you. Stop by for the summer. Okay, we're going to go back to DC, except for one of the manhunts that then procced in New York. So that was the other thing that was frustrating. It was like, wait, it's a whole brand new space. We're there for a hot minute, and we're back in DC. So the content aspect of it. But no, I understand. I feel you, brother. I feel where your pain is. So that stuff like that. So, but
yeah,
you did. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think the other part of that, Negan, you call it out there, like, I want to be back in New York. Yes, I do. And I don't know where your watch level's at. You're probably similar to me, maybe a little further along, because I know you played more of this than I have. But even that alone, if that is the requirement to be good, because I know we have friends on Discord that don't seem to have the same frustration I have. Now, granted, they run in groups most of the time. But if it's their watch level that's making them not have a hard time in this game because they've maxed the thing out, that's not right either. And as well, at no point does my super feel super. That was the other thing I would call out. Like, I've got the TAC 50 on my back. I busted it out at one point today. It does less damage than my Baker's dozen, I think.
Oh, geez.
That's not
you're
super.
You're shooting wrong. Yeah, that's not super. Yeah, when it takes 4 boom booms from your grenade launcher to take down a boss, that doesn't feel super either. If you actually take down the boss with them.
Or on heroic to take down the rusher coming at you with the shield. Who barely can deflect grenades.
That's right. Yeah, no, I agree on that. I agree on all that stuff. It's definitely, there's definitely a pain point that we're suffering through. So.
But I think the nice thing, I will say this, I think the nice thing is, like, we really want to do those hunters, right? And we really want to do, you can do the manhunt content on hard and probably have a great time. And we can do those hunters on hard and we'll have a great time. And so it's not like you have to do it on heroic. It's just, you're going to hit a point, and I think this is the whole point. You're going to hit a point where your build's good enough that the only place you're going to get upgrades for it is heroic. And for me, at that point, this game is done. I'll play it in a group, and I'll go do fun stuff, like go hunt hunters, but the game is over for me once it gets to there. Requiring heroic in order to get an upgrade, because I can't run it by myself.
And
I can't farm it. I can't do any of that.
And the fact that when you're running heroic content, there's still purple drops. That's just a kick in the crotch. Everybody has gotten on them for that since it started. Since, you're running heroic stuff, there should be no chance, period. There should be no purple drops anyway.
Anywhere.
Anything that drops
ever.
Ever. Anything that drops in heroic should have a top level.
Honestly, in heroic, nothing should ever drop with anything less than at least a
Agreed.
halfway
Yes.
up bar in it, right? Like everything should have a minimum threshold of at least a 50% roll.
Which they said they were going to do, but clearly they didn't.
No, they did not.
Those poor guys. So
I mean, I got some goods. Don't get me wrong. It's not like if I'd never played before on heroic today, I would have gotten upgrades, right? I mean, I did get some things with some max stats. The problem is my library already has all of those max stats.
It's a curse and the blessing of the library.
There it is, right? Like, I don't need another max hazard roll protection on my knee pads. One, I don't use it anyway, but two, I already have it in my library. I don't need it again. It is what it is, man. It is what it is.
But let's end it on a positive note. So there's things you did sign a contract for that you are going to run in here. You're going to run to the hunters, go hunter hunting with us.
For sure.
All that good stuff. And have fun as a group, which is, I think, really where the gaming comes down to it. There's something to be said for some solo stuff. And you're, of course, like I said, you're a farmer. You enjoy the solo stuff. And you're also a race car driver, so you definitely enjoy the solo aspect of gaming if you're driving cars and shit. So
I do.
That's not a group activity.
It's not. And I think, to that end, I think I do like playing a bit by myself.
Something to be said about that. Nothing wrong with that.
Well, and I think moreover, if I I've got 4 kids, if I have to wait to the point where it's appropriate for me to be dedicated to something, meaning after they've all gone to bed. My oldest is 16. It's 11 o'clock, right? So what I'm usually playing, I can't be on comms and I can't be in group play because I'm going to have to go do this or go do that, and things come up and whatever. So the bulk of my gaming time in an evening is actually done, while kids are awake, when I might get pulled away at any second. And so I don't want to be in a group because, man, that's a liability, right? Like, if you and I were in the middle of heroic Tidal Basin and I got a kid that needs help, like, that's going to suck for you.
Yeah, hang on here for just a minute, Negan. I'll be right back. You're going to what? You're going to wait a second? No.
So, I mean, so for a portion of my evening, on nights when I get to game earlier in the night, it's gotta be solo play. And I would want to be able to come in here in little sporadic moments and get an upgrade. And that's what I used to like about the fact that you could get upgrades out of things like the orange boxes. But now when you open the orange boxes, the hanging crates, they've got purples on them most of the time. If they got a gold, it's got like the worst rolls ever. But I think my biggest gripe with this game at this point, Negan, is, and this is just being spoiled. I'm just be honest. I'm being totally spoiled. But after playing so much Borderlands 3, I love the fact that most of that game is server side. And so these little adjustments can be made every week without pushing a patch out. You know what I mean? Like when they find something wrong, like, oh crap, Mayhem 6 gears dropping on Mayhem 10. They can patch that the next day because it's all server side.
That's true.
Versus here,
are pretty good.
Where it's like, well, I'm still getting purple gear, and the rolls aren't great in my in the checkpoints. We'll have to address that in 6 weeks when we push out the next patch after it's been certified and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? Like, and so like we won't be able to emote in the base of operations potentially for the next 4 weeks. Which really jacks up our stream, Negan. It really messes up our stream. It really does.
It's hard to say hi when you can't emote. Son of a bitch. Yes, absolutely. No, yeah, you're true. We have been spoiled as far as that goes. So there we go. So no, all valid points. I think they're all valid points. All good points. It's something everybody's struggling through. It's something I'm going through as well. But what makes it better is the beer we drink.
Yeah,
or the drinks we
drink.
It is. That always
mine's gone.
Mine's gone. So my question to you is now we had not it wasn't a gripe session. It wasn't that negative. I think we had some good points and some good discussions as bad. It wasn't even remotely a gripe session. But how was your beer? What did you think of your hazy pale ale? Not hazy IPA, but your hazy pale ale.
I loved it. It was good. It's good. It's good beer. Quality beer.
Did you expect it to be good? I mean, just out of curiosity, when you picked it up, did you think to yourself it was going to be a good beer, or was it
So
truly you didn't know?
I actually really like our brewery, and I promised you. I think last week, maybe it was on stream, but I promised you this year when they come out with their cask aged or barrel aged stout, I would mail you a 4-pack, right?
You mentioned that.
I did because they make really good beer. So I did
Okay.
have an anticipation that it would be good. These are actually the guys that own the brewery here in town. I used to be in a brewing club with before when they were just novice brewers. So I know them well. They're very talented at what they do.
Oh, nice. That's good.
So
It's good to hear. That's good. It's nice to have personal connections like that to the beer. You kind of go into it with a whole different attitude, and like you said, it's a local brewery. I always want to support the locals, which is
yep.
why I supported the Laughing Monk, which is a local to San Francisco.
It's funny we both showed up with hazy pale ale sorts from local breweries tonight. Totally unplanned. That's kind of
completely
ironic,
unplanned. Completely unplanned. And more ironic is the fact we keep saying that we're going to stop doing hazy IPAs because neither one of us enjoys them on a on a regular basis. So we're like, okay, you know what? We're not going to do them anymore. So I did a porter last week, and well, look where I'm at is the hazy IPA, which I'm glad I did though, because this one, and now I know
was
to
good.
look for New England IPAs. It was good. It's very citrusy. It had a little bit of the pine on the back end, but not chewing a Christmas
not
tree.
Unbearable.
Not unbearable. It definitely had more of the orange citrus side to it. So I enjoyed this one. Actually, I can recommend this one to others, and I will definitely have this one again. And
that is
local,
good.
so it's all good. It was a good time. So on that note, so we got good beers. Had a little bit of a coming to Jesus talk with Diviz 2. We still enjoyed some of it. Some of the patching they did a good job with. They still need to tweak a little bit, and they fucked up our emotes. That's the real sadness in all this.
There's the real news today. They screwed up the emotes. There it is. There's the news.
that's where we're gonna end it on fucked up emotes. That's where we're gonna end it.
I'm trying. I'm trying to emote right now, Negan. This is what happens when
you're just standing there. Look at me. Do. Nice. All right. All right, man. I will.
All right.
We'll see everybody next week then.
Sounds good.
You want to do the sign off?
I get to, right? Because I'm the co-host tonight. Right?
You're the co-host. Go for it.
Well, thank you for stopping by, and we will see ya.